So now that Gypsy Rose is advocating for prisoners or Amelia Bird, I kind of wanted to go into more detail on what Amelia Bird's story really was about if you didn't know who she was and what happened. Also, I'm going to show you a few comments just that Gypsy has written herself in the past few days about the situation. This is Amelia Bird. She was 16 years old when she was arrested when she conspired to unalive her mother and father with her boyfriend, Chad Brantley. And I will show you Chad Brantley here. This is 21-year-old Chad Brantley. Mind you, this girl, Amelia, is 16 years old with a 21-year-old man. In January of 2006, 16-year-old Amelia Bird and her older boyfriend, Chad Brantley, conspired to unalive Amelia's parents in their Missouri home. Brantley entered the house with a pew-pew, fatally used the pew-pew on Amelia's mother, Christina Bird, and seriously wounded her father, William, aka Buddy Bird. Amelia stayed inside during the attack and called 911, falsely claiming a masked intruder had broken in. Investigators quickly unraveled the story, uncovering text messages and inconsistencies that pointed to Amelia's involvement in planning the ambush. Both were arrested the next day. Chad Brantley pleaded guilty and received 4 life sentences in exchange for testifying against Amelia. She ultimately took a plea deal as well, same as Gypsy. Gypsy took a plea deal. That's why she did not go to trial. Mind you, Chad Brantley didn't get to testify against Amelia because she didn't go to trial. Anyway, she ultimately took a plea deal as well, avoiding a possible D sentence and receiving 2 consecutive life terms. Now, I want to add that Amelia, the only reason that she got up in the first place and called 911 was because her dad actually woke up. He chased the boyfriend to the door. So I'm assuming Amelia probably got scared and thought that, she had to play it off. She wasn't involved. She wanted to pretend like she wasn't involved. Of course, she played it off, and come to find out she was involved, just like Gypsy. Fortunately, her father did end up surviving. He was badly wounded, but he survived. Unfortunately, though, her mother did pass away. So Gypsy is responding to actually Karma Collector on a comment. She says, "Would you be willing to refrain from judging my friend? I'm doing this to offer assistance to help innocent people regain their freedom, just as I have developed a prototype after fulfilling my parole obligations, and I will stand by it. Thank you." I believe in this comment, someone asked what happened, and Gypsy is responding and says her boyfriend unalived her mother. And then somebody else wrote back and says, "Oh, like yours did? Go figure," which is so true. I also want to add in here that Gypsy has also now opened up a private Facebook group for Chillicothe inmates. It says Voices for Chillicothe Inmates, and I believe there's only like 2 members so far. It's a private group. So with that being said, as Gypsy likes to say that she served her time and that the judges and the district attorney and all that seen all the evidence, and her supporters say this a lot, it was their call, it was their decision. They seen all the evidence. They did this, they did that. That's why she's out, because she didn't do it. Nick did. Let me tell you something. When you take a plea deal, none of the evidence is brought out to the public, not to mention there is not a jury. There is no jury. Do you realize when you go to trial, there is a jury that makes a decision behind the closed doors? They make that decision for you, whether you should get charged or not. Ultimately, Amelia or Gypsy, neither went to trial, being said they didn't have a jury. So they took a plea deal. So if Amelia would have went to trial, she would have had a jury. Her boyfriend would have testified against her. Who knows what would have happened? She probably would have got the D sentence, the unaliving sentence. Just like Mike Stanfield said in his interview when he was walking out of the courthouse, saying that Gypsy was facing the D sentence. And that if they went to trial, that she didn't have a leg to stand on. How ironic. Because there was so much evidence. That's why. Because, your lawyer, he sees all the evidence. They're required, the DA, district attorney, and everybody is required to give Matt Stanfield, her attorney, all of the evidence. So he has seen everything, right? So he knew what he was up against. So that's why he told Gypsy probably, "Girl, you better take that plea deal, because if you don't, you're going to be stuck in here for the rest of your life." That's exactly what happened. It's exactly what happened. While Gypsy's out here trying to advocate for people that did the exact same crime as she did, how ironic, right? Again, just justifying it, that it's okay, just says who she is. Because you should not be, I understand that Amelia was 16, and a lot of people have opinions about that, but like Gypsy likes to say, the judges made their decision, they've seen all the evidence, or her supporters like to say, they also seen Amelia's. So, with that being said, they knew exactly what happened behind the scenes. She still received a plea deal, but still got life. So I imagine hers was probably worse than Gypsy's, maybe. I don't know the details too much behind it. I just know the basics of the story. I don't want to talk about her because I don't know the details. I don't know her personally, nor have I ever spoken to any of her friends that was in Chillicothe with her. But I'm just going off of news reports and other things that I've read into, comparing it to Gypsy's story, because clearly Gypsy is advocating hard for this woman. And mind you, just last year or a few months ago, Amelia came on, she had a girlfriend, right? Her girlfriend came on here and said, "Look, Amelia doesn't want nothing to do with Gypsy. Leave Amelia alone." Apparently, Gypsy reached out to her recently since she's been off of parole. She said that Amelia and her are now friends, that they straightened out all the lies and that they are good now. And of course, Amelia wants Gypsy to advocate for her. Who wouldn't if you were locked in a cell for the rest of your life? Literally. If I was in jail for the rest of my life and I had a girl that was like, quote unquote, D celebrity, I'm not even gonna, F celebrity, whatever she is. She's not even famous. She's not a celebrity, but you know what I mean. Of course, I would want anybody to advocate for me because you want to get out of prison when you're in prison. Duh. Also want to add that just because you're friends with somebody when you're in prison and you become friends with them does not mean that they should be free just because you were friends with them. They still did a crime. Anyways, I hope that cleared some things up if some of you may not have known about Amelia's case and why Gypsy is riding so hard for Amelia. Anyway, I'll talk to you later.